Welcome to the 10th and final video in our series, Understanding Inflation and Escalation in Defense Acquisition, Best Practices for Cost Analysis. Today, we will discuss forecasting price changes in the out years, or the medium to long-term future. Let's get started. Cost estimates require assumptions about future inflation and price escalation rates. The DoD published indexes will typically provide forecasts for a 5-year period called the Future Years Defense Program, also known as FYDP or FYDP. One such index that the DoD publishes rates for is fuel. Similarly, forward pricing rate agreements between the DoD and industry, such as direct manufacturing labor rates, typically extend for 5 years. All periods more than 5 years into the future are generally called out years in the Department of Defense. Standard practice has been to apply the percentage growth rate from the last year of guidance to all subsequent years. In this example, the forecasted escalation rate of manufacturing labor in the 5th year of guidance was 0.9%. If we applied the recommended technique, then this would mean there would be a 0.9% increase each year out. But this method of forecasting the out years may not be realistic. Let's compare this with an analogy. If the weather forecasted for the next 5 days to be rainy, it would not be realistic to forecast rain every day thereafter. Because many program estimates have spending requirements beyond 5 years, often called out years in the Department of Defense, the analyst should determine long-term assumptions that maximize the realism and stability in the cost estimate. For example, let's take a common cost element required to operate many defense programs, fuel. Compared to other commodities, fuel has had relatively volatile escalation rates over time. If we simply took the forecasted escalation rate for fuel in the 5th and final year of guidance and extend that rate out indefinitely, the assumption would likely generate large swings in cost estimates from year to year. Because the life cycle of a defense program can last several decades, small differences in assumed out-year forecasts can create big changes. For example, the forecasted escalation rate for the 5th year of the fiscal year 2008 guidance was 2.7% annuum. After 20 years of escalation at 2.7%, the price for a barrel of fuel increases roughly 70%. In contrast, the forecasted escalation rate for the 5th year of fiscal year 2015 guidance was negative 9.0% annuum. After 20 years of de-escalation at negative 0.9%, the price of a barrel of fuel decreases nearly 17%. A barrel of fuel was expected to rapidly increase into the indefinite future in 2008, but in 2015, the same barrel of fuel was expected to show persistent decreases. Though changes in supply and demand factors affecting the market price may have driven changes in expectations, it is probably not realistic to assume higher than normal growth or lower than normal growth to persist indefinitely unless there is a supporting analysis. Suppose in fiscal year 2013, the last observed barrel of fuel was $103, and forecast guidance for the next year was $128, representing a 24% increase. Then fuel escalation guidance increases yet again before decreasing slightly, decreasing at a steeper rate, and then increasing once more. The 5th and final year of guidance showed growth at only 0.6% per annum. If we extend that 0.6% escalation rate out indefinitely, then by year 2040, we will forecast the price of a barrel of fuel to cost about $140. Now, let's see what we would forecast the price of the same barrel of fuel in fiscal year 2014 dollars for 2040. The forecast for the first year escalated at only 3.1%, compared to the forecasted 15.3% from the previous year's guidance. While we expected the price to be about $140, shown in blue, we now expect the price in the exact same year to be only $127, using updated fiscal year 2014 guidance, shown in red. The subsequent 4 years of the forecasted escalation again show an increase, a decrease, another decrease, and then an increase again. The 5th and final year of fiscal year 2014 guidance was then 1.5%. If we extend this escalation rate of 1.5% out into the future, we then find that the price of a barrel of fuel is nearly $177 in 2040. Our expectations for the price of fuel in 2040 jump from $140 to $177 per barrel in just 1 year's time, simply due to the practice of extrapolating out the last year of guidance into the out years. Whereas the rate of the fifth and final year of guidance was 0.6% in fiscal year 2013, it was more than double of that in fiscal year 2014, creating a significant swing in the cost estimate. If we continue this method for fiscal years 2015 and 2016, we will continue to see large swings in the forecast for the same barrel of fuel over the same time periods. For example, fiscal year 2015 had a forecasted escalation rate of negative 0.9% in the fifth and final year of guidance. Extrapolating that out to the year 2040 shows a price decrease to nearly $107 per barrel. With no other changes to program assumptions other than out-year escalation rates, we can generate major swings in cost estimates. In years past, official government guidance on inflation and escalation instructed the analysts to use the rate in the fifth and final year of the forecast for all out years. This guidance has changed. Analysts are now encouraged to use long-term assumptions that maximize the realism and stability of the cost estimate. When forecasting escalation rates into the out years, we recommend that you use professionally developed indexes. For example, various academic, government, and private sources produce forecasted escalation rates for many goods and services up to 30 years into the future. However, where information on future rates is lacking, we recommend setting long-term escalation rates at the Federal Reserve's inflation target, currently set at 2% per annum. This is because uncertainty quickly dominates all long-term price forecasts. Long-term rates different than the 2% inflation target credibly set by the Federal Reserve should be used when supported by defensible analysis. For example, when labor costs are under consideration, a reasonable long-term rate forecast would be about 1 percentage point above inflation. This is because labor wages as measured by the Employment Cost Index, or ECI, have generally outpaced inflation in the past. This assumption is defensible because the growth of labor wages over and above inflation represents returns to increasing labor productivity over time. In other words, the Employment Cost Index is an escalation index unadjusted for changes in the quality or skill level of workers. Thank you for watching. This concludes our 10th and final video in our series, Understanding Inflation and Escalation in Defense Acquisition, Best Practices for Cost Analysis. For more information or additional resources on how inflation and escalation are used in defense acquisition, please visit our website at cade.osd.mil/policy/inflation.